What's up, guys? I'm Primetime Poulton. With me, main event McNulty, and we are La Pod Gods. Thanks for joining us. We already have Edwin the Ace in the chat. Hail, Edwin! Thanks for joining us. Today we are talking about AEW's Brodie Lee tribute. The day after Christmas, unfortunately, Brodie Lee passed away. Apparently, after almost a 2-month long bout with a lung infection. Really sad. But I will say that the pro wrestling community really, I don't know, came up big and just shared so much love and shared great stories about Brodie Lee, Luke Harper from WWE, and AEW did a fantastic tribute show in his honor last Wednesday. Phil and I are going to talk about it. We're going to share some of our favorite Brodie Lee, Luke Harper moments as well. Before we get into that, though, Phil, it's been a while since we talked. Our last episode was our big Christmas episode. How was your Christmas?
It it was interesting. It was interesting. We started out Christmas on the 23rd. We traveled to my girlfriend's parents in near Lancaster, PA. And then on Christmas morning, we left their place to go to my parents' place for Christmas Day. She got sick the night before, so I had to drop her off. So Christmas was wild. I basically had 3 Christmases. I had Christmas one day with my girlfriend and her parents, and then I had Christmas Day part 2 with my family, and then Christmas Day part 3 with my girlfriend while she was recovering from being ill. Just something got her upset in the stomach. But so it was wild. I'm kind of glad it was over, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was glad that it was over. And then I got your text message that next day, and I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
What about yours?
Christmas was great. Christmas Eve, Chrissy Chase and I went over a friend's house and just had a small dinner with them, exchanged presents. And then Christmas Day, it was just the 3 of us at home. We stopped over my mom's afterwards to do some presents. And then we unfortunately went to the movies and we saw Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, how is it? I've been seeing the mixed reviews on it.
So, I mean, it's not completely terrible,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just the first one is so good. And this one just doesn't measure up to their first one.
I think it's so hard, especially because that's basically the movie I would say that saved any possibility of DC having any movies coming forward. They're like, hey man, that Wonder Woman was good. Let's continue on.
Yeah, no, it's just a weird movie. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but it's basically they find a magic rock that grants wishes, and the whole thing is just based on like wishes. And
it's not like, as soon as I saw Maxwell Lord was in it, I was hoping a little of the snap.
Yeah.
Does it happen?
No.
Oh, okay, then I don't even want to see it anymore.
And like I'm a big Maxwell Lord fan because he brought together the Justice League International, which is my favorite incarnation of the JLA. I always loved the Giffen and DeMatteis run, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, and he had a little bit of that Maxwell Lord charm to him. I had to tell my wife and son that, hey, that's the Mandalorian on the screen. They both couldn't believe it, but yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are some good spots in it, but overall, I would give it, if I had to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, I would give it a thumbs down.
Shame. As Gordon Ramsay would be like, shame.
Same with New Year's Day. It was pretty quiet. We just binge watched Cobra Kai. Great show. I can't say enough good things about it.
You know what? This will be funny. I'll tell you what I did New Year's Eve. I watched Twilight.
Oh,
I watched the
wow.
Twilight movies. I was a hater going in, but I got to tell you what, I enjoyed the shit out of those movies. I binged them the entire New Year's Eve and the New Year's Day. And my girlfriend's like, "You're gonna like these because you like trashy stuff, right?" Because I tried to talk, like, we were watching The Queen's Gambit at first, and I'm like, "This is the craziest shit I've ever seen." And she's like, "Hold on, hold on, hold on. You watch at least 3 times a week professional wrestling. You showed me a clip where an 80-year-old woman gave birth to a hand, and then 20 years later, that hand comes back." She's like, "And you're saying," I said, "Well, it's making me give a shit about chess." Same thing with Twilight. I'm like, "This is the weirdest shit I've ever seen," but I'm into it.
It's actually my wife's favorite movie series, so I've seen them all. I've seen them all in the theater. I've seen them on Blu-ray. She has the box set, so yeah, I'm very familiar with Twilight. I was actually when they were the most recent Spider-Man revamp with Tom Holland. I was like, oh, they should just get Edward Cullen to be Peter Parker, and I thought he'd be perfect for it. And then when I heard they were doing Morbius, I was like, oh, forget that. He should be Morbius. You just bring the whole Twilight crowd over. So I'm actually like one of the few people looking forward to the Robert Pattinson Batman. My wife's really excited about it too.
I will tell you what, after watching those movies, I'm excited for it too because he was the only real good like actor in there, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
everyone else is total bullshit, which makes it. But the fact that he gives a shit really made I don't, and I've been hearing reports how like he's like, "Oh, it's the most grueling thing ever," but I feel like, yeah, if you're Batman, it should be the most grueling thing ever. So I'm full on board with it. I'm excited after seeing those movies.
Yeah, no, it should be good. So before we get into kind of an emotional episode, I got a little bit of some good news. We announced U.S. Assassin 3, our crossover with Graveyard Shift a couple weeks ago. I'm happy to announce for the last 1.5 weeks, we were the top trending launching soon books on Indiegogo. We recently knocked out of the top spot because Kenneth Rocafort announced his new book. But it's really strong sign up so far. I'm really excited for it. And if you don't mind, Phil, I'd like to play the kick-ass trailer. I got the ultimate compliment the other day. Don Chin, creator of X-Farce and the radioactive adolescent Kung Fu Hamsters, he said if Emmys were given out for comic book trailers, U.S. Assassin 3 would win it.
It's so good.
All right, so I'm gonna share it and play it.
I'm the mercenary, Flip Gordon. And I'm joining the U.S. Assassins team.
Yeah, this is U.S. Assassin. They bout the action, ready to make it happen. Yeah, this is the elite government task force. Whole team is official. What more could you ask for? Yeah, this is U.S. Assassin. You don't want drama. If they pull up, they blasting. Monsters of the graveyard shift. You ain't never seen a squad quite like this. We got Bazooka Dog, and he don't cut no slack. A dog with a giant bazooka on his back. Slither is a reptilian, alien. 3 snakes for a tongue. You don't want to mess with him. Sensei Steel, who is so mysterious. Martial artist and trainer. Zero Face is a bad guy turned good. The mercenary is a beast, get it understood. Takeout is a fast shooter, fast draw. Kirby is the Lone Ranger, but she hits hard. Lieutenant Ray, second in command. Yes, indeed. Who's the brains of the team? Ninja at the lead. Yeah, hey, this is U.S. Assassin. Yeah, this is U.S. Assassin. Let's go.
There you have it, U.S. Assassin. I got my mercenary on right now. I'm representing Flip.
Every time I see that, I'm like, man, that is just so damn cool.
Thank you. All right, you ready to talk some AEW?
Let's get into it, and then we have after this, let's after our review and our Brodie thing, let's talk a little bit about news in the wrestling world. I know this has taken up a lot of it, and rightfully so, but there's some things that I haven't talked to you about when it comes to wrestling that I'd like to talk to you about afterwards.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so first up, we opened up the show with a video tribute and 10 bell salute for Mr. Brodie Lee, formerly known as Luke Harper in the WWE, John Huber. The entire roster was out. Mark Twain had a quote that said, "If you can count the amount of people on one hand at your funeral, you've lived a good life." Right. So, judging by everybody who was out on the opening of the show on the stage, red eyes, crying, it just speaks a lot to who Brodie Lee was as a person. Even though Mark and I have never met him in person, just seeing this outpouring of love and emotion for someone is almost seems very rare in wrestling. You never really have the true blue good guys, and it looks like John Huber was one of them.
Yeah, definitely.
So the card was actually co-created by Brodie Lee Jr., Brodie Lee's son, with Tony Khan. So there was a Dark Order member in every single matchup throughout the night, sort of celebrating Brodie as the Exalted One and his life. So the first one up was Hardy Party, Matt Hardy and Private Party versus Colt Cabana and the Young Bucks. This match ultimately led with Colt Cabana getting the pin, and it was a really, really good, solid match. I think everyone who's watching this episode today will know that we're probably going to have zero criticism of this show. It was one of the best tribute shows you could ever have for a wrestler that has departed too soon, but a really awesome, fun matchup to begin the episode with.
Yeah, yeah. I have no complaints with this the entire episode. Just seeing the emotion on Colt Cabana's face when he first came out, I started tearing up instantly. But he was like really fired up for that match. He looked absolutely great, and I'm hoping we get more Colt Cabana as regular AEW storylines pick up next week, or actually this week.
And what I like about this is that Colt Cabana seemed to be on the fence the entire time when it came to the Dark Order. And I love this is the first time he did the hand signal. Like you could tell he was full on in. And
Yeah.
I think, it's funny on AEW television, it's a cult, right? But on BTE, the Dark Order is like a fun-loving family that really cares for one another and like older brother, like big brother, big sister mentality on there. So I hope we do get more Colt in for our Dark Order storylines. I think you need to start. In the sense of professional wrestling, I think this is ultimate. Dark Order was turning face anyway. I think this is the ultimate cementing of them being a face faction from here on out.
Yeah, no. Right now they're the biggest baby faces in the company. Going forward, I wouldn't I wouldn't change that up. I would keep it going. Where do they go after this? I mean, there's been a lot of people saying, "Oh, Matt Hardy's turning heel. Maybe he should." A lot of people assumed he was the original Exalted One, but keep him baby face. Have him get beat down by a big, evil stable, maybe Inner Circle, and then have like Hangman or Dustin Rhodes come out to make the save, two people that they've been trying to recruit.
It's crazy how much, I think just the last episode, we fantasy booked Hangman like joining the Dark Order, and Brodie Lee like slowly realizing that people are starting to, his cult is learning to love Hangman, and it was going to turn into like an awesome feud. And it's weird just to see, like, we booked that, and now we're never going to be able to see what has just been a beautiful storyline,
Yeah.
from a guy who I had as the front runner for my comeback wrestler of the year from Luke Harper into Brodie Lee. It's it's hard to think about someone so young, just gone so fast. It's just difficult to wrap your mind around.
Yeah.
But the tributes didn't stop there. The very next match, we had Lance Archer and the OG Dark Order of Uno and Grayson defeating Eddie Kingston, the Butcher, and the Blade. Lance Archer probably had one of the most awesome tributes coming out in the vintage Luke Harper gear, doing everything that Brodie Lee did as that character. Jericho was just right on commentary. I loved Jericho. I think Jericho was so good on commentary, keeping it about Brodie Lee 100% of the time. When he just called him out, he said Luke Harper, Eric Rowan, like he didn't care. He was just saying, who cares, whatever.
No, I always enjoy Jericho on commentary when he does guest commentary, and him being part of this, I thought was great, just because he's one of the brothers too, and he probably knew Brodie more than the announcers did. My dogs are going crazy upstairs. I don't know if you can hear them, but Jericho just adding little things like talking to Brodie's other son Nolan, just saying, you got a whole locker room that's going to take care of you, and just throwing the little shout outs to him, because a lot of Brodie Jr. is older, so it hits closer to home. I don't know if Nolan knew what was even going on, but it was nice for Jericho to include him in it. And I don't know, he's just he excels at everything he does.
I think coming from Jericho, who is such a family man as well, he's always doing his son has diabetes, so he's always doing junior diabetes relief fund for the JDRF. So it's interesting to really see how wrestling as a community really did come together. And props to Eddie Kingston. There are two guys I'm going to shout out. First one's going to be Eddie Kingston. It's hard to be a heel during this sort of time. And the fact that he came out and he said, you know what? I'm going to cut a heel promo, but we love Brodie. Like at the same time, it's masterful class. And the second guy is MJF. Really the two guys who played the heels on this episode, and good for them, because someone had to do it. And I'm glad. It's good to see those two step up and be like, we need to get heat, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of people upset online with MJF, but I mean, I think if you ask like Brodie Jr., he was probably super excited for that spot. Also, shout out to Alan Angels. All the members of Dark Order were on the card wrestling, and when that was released, I know a lot of people tweeted Alan Angels, said, "Oh, that's you're not on the card," but I feel like he had one of the most important roles, just being there for Brodie Jr.
Yes, very. Thank you for bringing that up, Mark, because that really was just like that hit home during that point. Yeah, so you're right. If anything, he had the most important spot on the card.
Yeah.
So next up, we had the team of sort of Team Redemption. Hangman Adam Page with Silver and Reynolds defeating MJF and Proud and Powerful. The key spot here was, as Primetime alluded to earlier, was MJF going after Brodie Jr., going after the mask, which leads to Brodie Jr. hitting him with the kendo stick. And it opened up with Silver and Reynolds throwing the papers in homage to BT and Mr. Brodie Lee. This was the match that got me. I held it together throughout the beginning of the show, but this was the one match that I couldn't. This is when the tears and the waterworks came on for me.
Oh yeah, no, there wasn't a dry eye watching that show during that match. Silver dressed in his Brodie Lee gear. Brodie bought that for him. Bought him his ring jacket to make him look more like a star. Bought him the replica gear for a bit on BTE. So Brodie was like really into like building these guys up in his stable. He took a really hands-on approach. The ring jacket that 10 wears, Brodie, that was Brodie's first Dark Order ring jacket. He gave it to 10 to cover up his arm. If you remember 10, when he first joined the Dark Order, he had the injured arm in a sling, and Brodie thought it would look good on him and gave it to him.
That just kind of speaks to the person that he was. He paid for John Silver's gear to be like little Brodie. Like, yeah, it just shows you, like, it's amazing to hear so many people, like, not a bad word was said at all. And that's just amazing in this day and age where it seems like everything goes on the internet. It just shows you that his life was out there, not a bad mark at all. The part of this match that really got me crying was seeing Eric Rowan, aka Eric Redbeard, come out with a sign that says "Till we meet again, brother," and it was just hit me, because you could tell Hangman was filling up, and some guy who's not even on the roster, he just hugged Hangman like, I don't know you from Adam, but we both loved this guy. And it was just that's the part when I was just like, all right, that's it for me. I'm glad a commercial came on after that, because I was not prepared for more wrestling after that moment.
No, it's really something seeing all these big guys that play such tough, menacing characters on TV. Sometimes it gets a little hard watching them break down. You forget sometimes that they're human too.
Mm-hmm. So next matchup, we had Anna Jay and Ty Conti versus Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. Obviously, this ends with Anna Jay and Ty Conti picking up the victory. Your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. Like, when I saw the card, I was wondering if they would give Dark Order a clean sweep. And I was like, well, maybe that's why Penelope Ford's teamed up with Britt Baker to take the loss. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoy the Anna Jay Ty Conti storyline and team. I hope they do more and try to like do more about recruiting her into Dark Order.
You know what was interesting was she wore her gear, her non-Dark Order gear, which was interesting to me. Like, I don't know if it was because she was recruited, maybe because she was recruited wearing that gear. It just seemed like she was, paying homage to Brodie in some way. But yeah, this is probably one of the best female matches that AEW has had so far. I think it just shows that Anna Jay is just such a natural in the ring, on the mic, her presence, like it. It was just great to see. And
when we did our awards, we didn't do Rookie of the Year, but if we did, she would have won. I don't know of anyone in their first year who's done better than her.
Oh, totally. After the match, Thunder Rosa came out and battled with Britt Baker. Oh, I am so ready to see these two women beat the crap out of each other.
Yeah, no, I like that they worked some sort of current storylines into it, and yeah, it'll be interesting when they go back to normal this week to see where this goes. We said it before; they're the two top women in the company, so
Mm.
it'll be good.
So it was a dual main event. The main event wrestling wise was Cody 10 and Orange Cassidy, Brodie Jr.'s 3 favorite wrestlers, against Team Taz. It ends with Cody 10 and Orange getting the victory over Team Taz. We got the lights went out. Darby Allin's music came out. Out came Sting, right? So it seems like setting up for a future storyline. But I think the post match when Tony Khan came out and he awarded Brodie Lee Jr. the TNT champion for life was a very emotional moment, but also kind of shows you a lot of the character of Tony Khan. Retiring an entire title design to give it to Brodie Jr. was the epitome of class in my eyes.
Yeah, especially the TNT title, which the creation of the belt took so long, and was a big deal for the longest time. Cody was wearing the unfinished belt, but yeah, it's a really great gesture. Tony Khan, he was really broken up about it. It's just, I don't know, a class act. Everything AEW has done has been just absolutely first class, and they're a class act all the way they've handled this.
Yeah, and then the second main event was a final 15-minute tribute to the life of Brodie Lee through wrestlers and officials and backstage workers, and yeah, it was really, it's one of those things where you sit there and it's going to hit you in the feels, but you sit there and watch it because like you're going to cry at it. So just man up and say
Yeah.
I'm going to sit through this because the guy deserved it. He was such a good wrestler and apparently an even better human being.
Yeah, no, neither of us knew Brodie Lee, but the way everyone talked about him, you wish you got a chance to know him. He seems like such a great guy.
Mm-hmm. So that real quick recap of the Brodie Lee tribute show. I'm glad to see the Dark Order go for the clean sweep. I'm glad to see that AEW was there to say, you know what, we need to take our break for storylines and just build it. And it was nice to see a lot of the heavy hitters weren't on the show. They kept it. They said, you know what, our heavy hitter was Mr. Brodie, and this was his faction, and that was it.
So, Phil, when did you first discover Brodie Lee?
I first discovered Brodie Lee as part of the Wyatt family back in NXT. It was cool to see like this weird swamp people cult come up, and then when they first debuted, it was just fantastic. And then you start to see, then it was when he first won the Intercontinental Championship. When I first saw that, I said, "Oh, this guy's phenomenal." This guy, because you saw that they were tagging him up with Eric Rowan, and no diss on Eric Rowan's in-ring ability, but man, did that Luke Harper, you saw him suicide dives, drop kicks, just really know that he was commanding the ring and the presence, and you're like, this guy's got it. But my first seeing him was back with NXT, was the very early incarnation of the Wyatt family. What about you, Primetime?
First time I saw him, I had always heard the name. I watched Ring of Honor a little bit back in the day. It was hard to find it, but I remember him during there was a group called Age of the Fall, and it was Jimmy Jacobs, Tyler Black, who went on to be Seth Rollins, and for a short bit, Brodie Lee was part of the group. So that's a pretty formidable group when you think Jimmy Jacobs, who is like higher up at Impact and was a writer at WWE, Seth Rollins, who's one of the best, and Brodie Lee, who even back then everyone knew that he was a good worker. But then he came to WWE as part of the Wyatt family. Some of the memorable things for me was that ladder match he had with Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental title. He did a dive into the ladder where you thought he almost broke his broke his arm. And they were both bleeding in that. That was a brutal match, but it was great because it was during a time where there wasn't really a lot of brutal WWE matches, but him and Ziggler really stepped it up. Of course, when the Wyatt family faced off against the Shield the first time, just both teams lining up and the fans chanting, "This is awesome." Before they even touched it was something special, especially considering they built up two huge factions at the same time, which is kind of it doesn't really happen. Like back in the day, WCW had NWO, but they didn't have a faction just as equally powerful back then. Same with WWE, they had DX, but I mean they had the Nation. The Nation was never really on the same level.
I was just about to say the last time they had real two factions built up that made it intense was DX and the Nation, but you knew DX was always going to go over, and the Nation had The Rock, so when The Rock was gone, you knew the Nation wasn't going to do much, but they built up the Wyatt family to be so creepy at this point, and the Shield were built up to be, and both were heel factions, and it came to a point where you had to make a choice, which side were you on, and we didn't care about heels or faces. We just were rooting for like whatever team you're rooting for. It's really awesome stuff.
Yeah, no, it was a great time. Some of his other like notable Luke Harper stuff, I really enjoyed. He feuded with Dean Ambrose for a while, and they had some like no DQ brawls that went all around the arena. I always hoped that their feud would end in like a mutual respect for each other, where they teamed up. It was the dream team we never got that I always wanted.
It's funny because I honestly, to this day, think Jon Moxley's best match in AEW so far was that championship match against Brodie Lee.
Yeah.
Because and I think we were the one, we kept saying they got to give Brodie the title because we really would hate to see him lose to someone like Moxley when the storyline that belt could really elevate the Dark Order storyline.
Yeah.
That just shows you how well he kind of hopped over to AEW, that he was this exalted one who debuted in the middle of a pandemic. He never got, to me, what's such a shame is he never got to wrestle in front of a big audience that would appreciate him for his character at that magnitude. Like, it seems like he was always on the cusp of WWE and they didn't know how to get him out of this Luke Harper thing. So they kind of just shoved him to the side, where in AEW, he took reins of it. He's like, this is my steak dinner. This is no sneezing. Like, he became that character. And when he dumped the TNT, the old championship, on top of Cody, of it being destroyed, like, it's such a shame he never got to wrestle in front of that big time audience that would have just cheered the hell out of him.
Yeah, no. Last weekend I went back and watched some Luke Harper matches on the network, and you forget what it's like watching matches when there's a live pay-per-view crowd going crazy. We've been watching, like, AEW does a great job with the small crowds that they're allowing in, and it makes it feel better than what the WWE is doing right now. but man, what a difference a big crazy crowd can make.
I know it's like I feel like it's tough to be like, for me personally, to be like, oh, I really did not feel bad about what the future may have held for him. And I think, and we've all been celebrating. And I think that's a way of celebrating his life, is to realize that he did so much and that we loved his work so much that we knew there was still so much more greatness in there. And I feel like selfish saying we were robbed of, as wrestling fans, we were robbed of some awesome future matches and storylines.
Yeah.
When, a poor a woman was robbed of her husband and children were robbed of their father. It makes wrestling seem small, but then again, it is a community, and I think I love to see all the podcasts in tribute for Brodie Lee just make it about him, because really, like you said, we didn't know him, but seeing the stories makes you want to know him.
Yeah, no, AEW did a first class job. All his co-workers who have done tributes, Talk is Jericho had a great one, Being the Elite had a great one. Even like what happened when with Tony Schiavone, touching tribute at the beginning of their episode this week. So yeah, man. So you said you had some wrestling news you wanted to talk about?
Yes. It's the speculation we've been speculating about since Slammiversary. Ethan Page had to take down all of his merchandise. Who do you think he signed with?
That seems like a WWE move.
It does. As soon as I saw him tweet out, "Everything must go," oh, it was such like a blow, because it made me realize, oh no, he probably signed with WWE. Which, I mean, he's got the Vince McMahon look. He's got even the Triple H look. He's tall, he's built, and has charisma coming out his asshole. So I mean, kudos to him. I guess because I don't watch the product or follow it as hardcore as I do AEW or Impact, that it feels like he's leaving our little podcast. And now we're going to have to go purposely out of our ways to bring him back in if he is WWE bound.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, if he is WWE bound, this was the Ethan Page appreciation show. That's what the show started on, basically. Before we talked, we were talking about whatever wrestling, whatever pay-per-views were going on, and we would get together and talk about them. But then that night we got together and talked Slammiversary. We were like, oh, we're talking Impact every week, because Ethan Page was one of our favorites.
I know. I mean, at least I hope he goes on SmackDown, because that's the one WWE show that I do follow. But if he's on Raw or NXT, I'm not going to see him on Wednesdays, right? And Mondays are just too long. Sometimes they'll sit there for a half hour and I'm like, I'm done. Can't do it anymore.
It could all be a swerve.
Oh man, if he shows up. But I think all in all, I think it is the best career move for him, because I was thinking about this the other day. Brian Cage. I loved Brian Cage when he was the Swolverine, House of Hardcore. Seeing him on Lucha Underground with his Thanos glove, and then the Weapon X, attire for Impact. Like, he's now number 4 in a 4-man stable behind Ricky Starks, Taz, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Hook. He's behind all those guys when we think about it. So I feel bad, because if Ethan Page did sign with AEW, where would you fit him in? You only have 2 titles. the one titles wrapped up with Darby Allin and Team Taz that we spoke just about, and then the other one is doing a generational thing where he's popping on different wrestling promotions, trying to win all their belts. So the AEW championship is not going to be in his sights for a while because you have so many primetime players, and then you don't really know where the TNT championship would go for a while. We've been saying you got to push Ricky Starks, you got to give it to Orange, right? Where Brodie Lee was holding the title, like where would he have fit in, theoretically for AEW? Where if he signs in for NXT, he can shoot right to the top of become NXT champion, right? If he goes to SmackDown, he can immediately feud with Big E for the Intercontinental Championship. If he goes to Raw, who knows where, maybe he would go in with the Hurt Business to try to feud with them, right? Maybe he goes in. You don't want to hotshot him too far with McIntyre. But then again, they have McIntyre, Lee, Riddle. So maybe he just signed with, maybe if it's an NXT deal or a SmackDown deal, I would have signed. If I were him, I would have signed that because that's the fastest route up the ladder.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I'm hoping that it's all a swerve. He likes to get clever on his vlog, so maybe.
The biggest swerve is he signs back with Impact.
Yeah, no kidding. Was there any other news you wanted to talk?
No, that's I really, this was cathartic for me to talk to talk more about the episode and talk about our favorite moments, but also it was nice to realize, okay, let's just talk about it because it feels like the wrestling world has come to a standstill, and I don't think it will start turning again until Wednesday when AEW starts going back to their regular storylines, because I feel like Brian Myers called out the WWE about their tribute to him. Obviously, Impact is not there right now to even do anything because it's sort of their off season right now. So it's nice to see that. I know I probably won't start feeling that wrestling world to start revolving again until AEW picks up again.
Well, Impact is back tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They did 2 weeks of best of and year-end awards, so they're back tomorrow. They have a pay-per-view coming up in a week that they have to get back to promoting. They have the big main event with Kenny Omega teaming up with the Good Brothers against Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. And I think they got a big card planned for tomorrow with Eddie and Sammy are wrestling and some other big matches. So it'll be nice to see them back after a 2-week hiatus.
I've missed myself some Impact Wrestling, but who hasn't been on a hiatus? Johnny Swinger.
The Swing Man making an appearance on La Pod Gods.
Yeah, and we, like I said, this was fun, cathartic. It feels like it's hard to do a tribute show when someone who passed away so young. I think that's the hardest part about it, is that, if it were like Ric Flair to pass away, we would have been like, oh, I thought this was going to happen like 4 years ago. But just the way it happened so fast was kind of shocking and gut-wrenching.
Yeah, no, especially like we didn't even know he was sick. Hats off to AEW. They had known for 2 months and no one leaked a word. So that was his wife's wishes, and they stood by it. So good on them.
I for one of my sister's Christmas presents, my girlfriend and I got a cameo from John Silver to my sister because she loves John Silver. And John Silver says on the cameo, he goes to my sister, "Please join the Dark Order so Mr. Brodie doesn't paper me." And you just think about like how really props to everyone in AEW for not even letting anything slip or think anything was wrong. It was just, and that's why it was nice to even see like they had Brodie Jr. beat Kenny
Yeah.
Omega for the title, So it's nice. It was AEW, fantastic.
So before we go, Phil, where can people find you at?
You can find new artwork popping up on my Instagram and Twitter at Animated Phil. Twitter for all my wrestling hot takes.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Coney Waves. Make sure you subscribe to Primetime Poulton on YouTube. Hit the notifications. Go sign up if you haven't already for US Assassin Book 3. It's going to be awesome. And Phil and I will see you guys next week to talk some new wrestling.